Hi, hello, I'm Tally. Welcome or welcome back. I want to bring back Top 10 Tuesdays. So let's do it. This week is a genre freebie, which is a great week to decide. I wanted to do some of these. So I am going to be sharing with you 10 female fantasy authors I think that you should check out. So Women's History Month is the perfect month to go through 10 of the female fantasy authors I am obsessed with. I've read all their back catalogue, or they are new to me, or they're ones that I'm currently working through. But these are 10 that come to mind, and I think everyone should give them a try. We're going to start with Leigh Bardugo. In particular, the Six of Crows duology. I think there's a third coming out at some point, but it is a perfect duology, so it doesn't need a third. So this duology is from the Grishaverse universe, which also includes the Shadow and Bone trilogy and the King of Scars. I believe it's a duology, but they all take place in the same universe. Leigh Bardugo has some other books. She has a standalone historical fantasy, The Familiar, and a series, Alex Stern books, which are like dark academia contemporary, well, with a touch of fantasy. But in particular, I want to talk about the Grishaverse and the Six of Crows. So this is a YA series in which we follow 6 individual characters who are all thrust together to take part in a heist, and we follow each character. We follow them as they are pulled into this heist. The heist itself, like the plan of it, the heist, and then in the second book we have like the aftermath of what happens in the first book, and we really get to know each character. Each character is so well written as an individual person. They all have their own personalities, their own thoughts. They are written entirely different when you go to their POVs, and they all have different relationships with one another, which I think is why this is such a beloved duology, because the characters are just so rich and full, and this can entirely be loved and adored just as a pocket in the Grishaverse. You don't need to expand out into the rest of it. And I just think this is a great starting point. This is actually my entrance into Leigh Bardugo, and I don't regret it at all. Next is a series that I just could not get out of my stack shelves, and that is the Folk of Air series by Holly Black. So this starts with The Cruel Prince. I have actually only read The Cruel Prince. I have the rest of the series to come to, so I now am due a reread of The Cruel Prince before I can continue. But this is set in a Fae world, and we follow a young human girl, Jude, who gets taken to the Fae world when she is a child. Her and her younger sister, I believe she's a younger sister, and they get taken to the Fae world because they have like relatives that are Fae, and they are taken there and brought up by their granddad effectively. However, this Fae is closer to the kind of traditional Fae as opposed to what we see in romance these days. These are cruel Fae. They are violent, they are aggressive, they are out to hurt each other, and they are extremely selfish and will do whatever it takes to get what they want. And Jude very much wants to show them what a human girl can do. Through the course of the first book, and presumably the series, we watch her become more and more kind of confident in who she is, and more cruel to be able to stand in this Fae world after all of the bullying that her and her sister endured at like their Fae school, especially from the hands of the royal family and the Prince Carden. She decides she's not going to take it anymore, and she kind of ends up, I guess, pursuing some sort of revenge, but it's more pursued but it's more in the pursuit of power as opposed to revenge, But yeah, I just think this is so well written. When I read it, I really loved all of the folklore that was pulled into it, and I'm really looking forward to rereading The Cruel Prince and then finishing off the series. The next author is the author of a series that I am currently making my way through. It's very new to me, and that is the Between Earth and Sky series by Rebecca Roanhorse. So it starts with Black Sun and Fevered Star, then Mirrored Heavens. So I have recently read both Black Sun and Fevered Star. I have Mirrored Heavens on my TBR, and this is such an interesting series. So in Black Sun, we follow a few different characters, and we are primarily in a city that is in the midst of being ruled by the Sun Priest. And a Sun Priest, as a figurehead, has been in power for quite some time, but there are still those that pray to the crow god and some other gods and various other kind of entities, powerful entities. And one of the POVs is a young man, Serapio, who is making his way to the holy city of Tova. He is blind, and he tells people that he is the crow god. Obviously, a lot of people just think he's talking absolute rubbish, but Shala, the captain of the ship who has taken him to Tova, knows there's something interesting about Serapio, something that she can't quite put her finger on. And he plans on taking over as the main holy figure in Tova. The kids are now playing in the garden, so apologies if you can hear that. But next on my list is for those that want to sink their teeth into a vast, expansive world, giving you that kind of a traditional epic fantasy vibe. We're looking at anything by Robin Hobb. Robin Hobb has a huge writing universe, the realm of the Elderlings, and it is separated into, I think they're all trilogies that are kind of like a self-contained story, but they're all interconnected, or rather, my understanding is things that happen in like, for instance, this is the first trilogy, this is the Farseer trilogy, starting with the Assassin's Apprentice. And things that happen in this, my understanding is it affects future trilogies, like the world surrounding it. I've actually only read this one so far. The rest is on my TBR. I thoroughly enjoyed this. This is for those that really like those kind of old school epic fantasy worlds that they can get lost in, but they want it to be a little less predatory towards women. I mean, obviously it's a medieval setting to a certain extent, unfortunately, that is still written into these stories, but we're not looking at the kind of thing you see in grim dark series. I'm thinking of like Game of Thrones, etc. This is such a whimsical yet emotionally driven series, and it also really packs a punch. And that's not me saying that this doesn't have its moments of violence and gore and things that make you just want to tear your hair out, but it is one of those series that is really enjoyable every step of the way. Next is an author that I'm not going to talk about one of their series, primarily because I haven't read their series, but we're looking at R.F. Kuang. Now, R.F. Kuang is obviously the author of the Poppy War trilogy. I'm not sure if it has a different name. I haven't read that yet, although I do intend to. However, Babel and Catabasis have absolutely stolen my heart when it comes to R.F. Kuang's writing style. These two are historical leaning, dark academia leaning fantasy. One follows a young immigrant boy who is thrown into the Academy of Babel, which is at the University of Oxford, set in the 1800s, is it? Yeah, 1836. He is taught how to carry out basically translation magic. He has basically translation magic, which is used to command metal, silver in particular. And then we have Catabasis, which follows some academic kind of rivals, low-key rivals, who use their scholarly magic to go down to the underworld to find their professor that has recently passed, because they need him for various reasons, and they end up going through the kind of circles of hell, as it were. Both of these very much capture the language as magic in a dark academia setting, and that is something I absolutely adore. R.F. Kuang is such a fantastic wordsmith. Like, the way that she kind of comes up with and then describes these situations that our characters find themselves in, it just really, really drew me in. And I think that both of these are well worth a read. However, if these are not your kind of vibe, there is, as I said, the Poppy War trilogy, which is, it's not any less heavy in terms of like the storyline and the emotional burden that you're going to have, but that follows a bit more of an expected arc for a fantasy trilogy, I believe. As I said, it is on my TBR. Now let's discuss Catherine Arden. I've only read the first in her Winter Night trilogy series. I literally read it like last month, and this is a Russian folklore inspired trilogy, and it's just so incredibly atmospheric. It drew me in so quickly, and you can really see the different aspects of various kind of Russian and Slavic folklore being brought into it. Each of our female characters are so incredible, and you really, really root for them. And seeing them put in these awful situations by men to make their lives better and easier and give them a more powerful footing in like the realm or the kingdom is heartbreaking. But we have hope throughout the book, and I'm so excited to pick up book 2. Catherine Arden also has a few other series, and I think a couple of standalone, and I believe some middle grade books as well. So there is quite a vast catalogue to dive into if you enjoy her writing. Let's discuss Saba Tahir, and in particular the An Amber in the Ashes series. This is one, I believe it's a trilogy, it might be a few more books by now, but this is one that I've read the first book for. I absolutely loved it at time of reading, so I need to reread the first book so I can continue on with the series. And I believe she has at least one other series. Yeah, she also has the Air duology, which definitely intrigues me as well. So An Amber in the Ashes is a, off the top of my head, Middle Eastern inspired fantasy trilogy, and this follows various characters in the midst of a governmental regime which is out to benefit no one beside those in charge. And we follow a young woman as she is kind of inadvertently pulled into the rebellion slash resistance, and she ends up having to go undercover as a slave within the compound of the regime. And then we also follow a soldier within that regime who, even though he's on the inside, his life is not that much better, and the two of them kind of form an unlikely friendship, and realise that they're kind of on the same page when it comes to the fact that this needs to be taken down, and very, very quickly. This is one of those books that grips you and pulls you in, and there's so many points in the first book alone when you are literally sitting there thinking, how are they going to get out of this? What have they done? What have they put themselves into? And the villains are so fantastic because they're not overly villainous. They are entirely believable and definitely a reflection of what you actually find in these positions. They're not all like mustache twirling hee bad guys. A lot of the people that are making these decisions that are truly horrific just look like you or I. And I think that is one of the ways in which this series really kind of steps up what it's trying to show, like in a mirror, a reflection of, you know, society, etc. So I'm very much looking forward to reading the rest of this series. Shauna Maguire is someone who writes in a vast array of different genres, and I believe under a couple of pen names. But one that always jumps out to me is the YA series Wayward Children. This is a portal fantasy series in which we follow various children. They're all novellas, and up until a certain point you could say they're almost standalone. You can jump in at any point, but they do have like overarching characters, and a little bit towards the latter end of the series we're definitely looking at overarching storylines as well. But in this series we follow young teenagers who, or preteens who have stumbled across portals that take them to a world that gives them their, like, what they really in their hearts want. And they're usually around 8 or 9 when this happens, and they live in that world, and then at some point they're kind of spat back out into our world, and that door won't appear to them again until they are sure that they want to leave our world forever. So we mostly alternate between the characters following their stories in those worlds and following various characters that are in our contemporary world now, and a mixture of young teens who are desperate to find their door again and to get back to that world, and others who just want to forget about it entirely. And when they come back, most of them, their family support is entirely crippled because they've been gone for like 4 or 5 so many years whilst they've been off in this new world, and because they're so young they really struggle to kind of fit back into what is expected in our world. Also, a really interesting thing that Shauna Maguire does in this series is like really investigates and the idea of what in your heart of heart you really want. Is that actually the best for you? Because these children are like 9 years old when they're taken into this world. What they want, or what they're missing in their life, may not necessarily be the best thing for them. And the stories surrounding that kind of concept are so intriguing, and I feel like so many of these characters just really held my heart. And some of them have really strong content warnings as well, so I will recommend you check them before you pick up the books. But I will say, I think these books are worth it. I think the messaging behind these books is absolutely fantastic. And this is a series that I reread over and over and over. And it's one that I will definitely pass down to my children when they're older as well. Another author that is well known for writing in various genres is Silva Moreno Garcia. One book I really want to highlight is one that I feel like is kind of underrated and doesn't get as much love as it definitely deserves, and that is Gods of Jade and Sorrow. So this is set in Mexico City in the Jazz Age, and we follow a young girl, Cassiopeia. She kind of ends up entwined with the Mayan god of death. She like accidentally sets him free, and then it is down to her to help him find his way back, I believe. It's been a while since I read this, and I really need to reread it. And just watching like their adventure together is actually so somehow heartwarming and wholesome, despite him being the god of death. And watching Cassiopeia kind of blossom and thrive and grow in confidence as they go on this almost like road trip style quest to try and fix what she's done, and the god of death is very much got his own agenda as well. So I just think this is such a great book. This is just one of those books where they put like two different personalities together and somehow it works, and I really enjoyed this. This was the first Sylvia Marina Garcia book I read and I absolutely loved it. Obviously I've gone on to consume a lot of them, and I particularly like their take on horror in particular, but this one just holds a, you know, it holds a special place in my heart, and I don't hear many people talking about it, and I think that more people should pick it up because it was such a fun ride. And finally, we are going to discuss The Chunky Boy of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. This is by Susanna Clarke. She has also written Piranesi, which I've not finished yet, but I am currently reading. But Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell just absolutely captured my attention, and it just held on. And you know what? It's how many pages? Like just under 1,000 pages, but this flew by, absolutely flew by. This is set in 1806 in England, and in this, it's like an alternate universe in which magic and magicians are kind of well known. And we follow Mr. Norrell, who has learnt about magic through study and research. He's a scholar in magic. And then we have Jonathan Strange, who has come about it through practicality rather than research and scholarly. He has just wanted to learn it, so he did. He actually wanted to learn it to impress a lady. And the two of them kind of end up together, working alongside one another because they're both like the most well-known purveyors of magic in England, in a time when magicians have been kind of wiped out, and they work together to assist with various things, and then their viewpoints cause a falling out, and we follow the falling out and everything that happens from there, and like for a span of time. And this is just fantastic. It really was. How this book just kept me going, and at no point was I like, oh god, this book has been going on for so long. No, Susanna Clarke, she knew how to write this in a way that kept me interested, and it was compelling all the way through. And I am desperate for a reread of this. I really want to reread it and annotate it, and just I really want to reread it and annotate it. And I believe there's an adaptation as well, which I need to check out. So yeah. So there we have it, our first top 10 Tuesday with our genre freebie. So let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books. Let me know in the comments your top female fantasy authors. And if you want to say hi, but don't actually have anything to say, drop a bird emoji in the comments. Whilst you're down there, make sure to like and subscribe so you'll continue to see my videos as they're uploaded. And thank you for spending time with me today, friends. Bye.